Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video, which is going to be another installment in my series You Do Not Need That, where we're talking about new tempting upcoming releases that might have you reaching for your wallet and clutching your pearls. If you are on a no buy, low buy, you're trying to save money, you're trying not to buy as much makeup, but you are suffering from FOMO and temptation, you've come to the right place. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so we're kicking it off with Pat McGrath's Bijoux collection. A very tempting, I was going to say little release, but it's a pretty large release, isn't it? By release standards. It's ginormous. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot to unpack. But the number one reason why you actually do not need any of these products, whether it's the cheek palettes or the eyeshadow palettes or the both palettes that are tempting and luring you in, the main reason we don't need any of this is because most of this we already own. A lot of the products that are in these tempting holiday, beautifully packaged, very, very pretty and tempting palettes, we actually already own. The cheek palettes consist of the permanent bronzers, which we already own, or already decided we actually don't need. New blushes, sure, but again, we already have a lot of blushes from Pat McGrath. She has a whole permanent line of blushes that are like on sale right now because we bought them. We already have them. We don't need those. Slightly different shades, sure, but how different? How different really are they? Not that different, actually, to the ones that we already picked up. And then highlighters, which are in her permanent formula, which again, we already own. And these are just slightly different colours, which on the cheek really gonna not look that much different. So we don't need the cheek palettes. We already have everything in there. It's just slightly different shades. So you don't need those. You already probably have them, or you already chose not to buy them. So why are we even having this conversation? Now the large palettes, which have 9 eyeshadows and 2 blushes, one of those blushes is again permanent, so you might already have it, or you already chose not to buy it when it was a permanent single blush, and now suddenly you want the palette that contains it. Why? And ultimately, if you've ever bought one of Pat McGrath's Holiday Mothership Megas, you definitely already have all the colours in these large palettes. These are never the special formula that she puts in her Mothership, her regular Mothership palettes that are very, 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 very expensive. These are a lot cheaper than her Mothership palettes for a reason. No special shades and really small pans, really not going to last that long if you do use it a lot, and really not that special. The whole special thing about Pat McGrath, the reason she can charge those exorbitant prices is because a lot of it to do with very expensive, large, heavy duty packaging with very expensive beveled mirrors in those motherships and the special shades. None of those in here. These are all pretty nice shimmers, beautiful, lovely shimmers, nice shadows, all very, very, very nice, but not the reason why Pat McGrath products, our eyeshadow palettes, are so expensive. That's not in here. We have the cheaper cardboard packaging. We have the cheaper, flatter mirror. We have the less expensive, non-special eyeshadow formulas, and no wow, very, very different shades that we haven't already seen in all of the previous holiday eyeshadow palettes, the Mothership Megas that we already probably picked up in previous years. So there's nothing especially new. They have a permanent blush in there that again you either already have or chose not to have. You know, these are £69, very, very expensive for something that really isn't giving you anything new, anything exciting. And then we have the £5. You know, Pat McGrath's released a fair number of these £5 and quads at this point, and all of these shades and shadows are already existing in those previous £5 or previous quads that she's already released, or are present within the motherships. Have a look through what you already own. If you own nothing from Pat McGrath, then sure, fine. But again, we don't have special shades in these £5, and they're not that cheap. £33. That's half of a midi Natasha Denona palette for a £5 without any special shades and with the cheaper cardboard packaging. So is it really worth the £33? I'm not sure it it is. But at the very least, you should be waiting for sale, because the Sephora sale is right around the corner for 20% off, which is double what you get if you use the early access code at Pat McGrath. So at least wait for like the max discount that you can get. If these stay in stock, because they are limited edition, eventually Pat McGrath will have one of her 30% off sales, and you could get it for even less. So it's definitely not worth paying full price for if you need any of it at all. And let me tell you, I haven't got my order yet. I placed it 2 weeks ago. So, you know, you're best off out of the mess that is dealing with Pat McGrath customer service, if you ask me. I would love to not have to deal with it, but you guys don't need to. So I envy you. Next up, I want to talk about a product that is not new, but it's back. It's the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette. Here's the thing about this palette, okay? This was limited edition last year. It never came to the UK, all right? And I was furious because I wanted it, like lots of people. This looks so pretty. Reviews were mixed. Some people loved it as their favourite palette. It's beautiful. Other people were like, it's very average, it's fine. It got a very low rating on Temptalia, I think. It seems like it's a pretty divisive little number, so it's risky, and it's not that cheap for quite a small-ish, neutral kind of basics eyeshadow palette. Sure, it's pretty, but ask yourself, why did you not pick it up the first time around? Because it didn't sell out overnight in the US. Yes, it did eventually sell out, but it wasn't overnight. So why did you not buy it the first time, but you want to buy it this time? I'll tell you why. It's because of FOMO. It's tricking you into thinking that this is way more special than it is. It's still a very basic neutrals, pretty eyeshadow palette of which you have lots. You may have the Natasha Denona Glam Face palettes, very similar colour story, probably a much more beautiful formula in those ones. You may have the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette. You may have several Charlotte Tilbury palettes or several Pat McGrath palettes of which you know that you can get a similar look to this out of those. You know that, don't you? You know that. But what's happened here is it's sold out, and it appeared to have been gone forever, and it's gone and it's gone and you can't get it. And you're so sad and you wish and you really regret not picking it up because, oh, you were thinking about it and now it's gone and it's gone forever and I can never get it back. And it's become this really covetable item because it's rare and you can't get it, and so that makes you really want it, really way more than you ever wanted it to begin with, because you didn't snatch it up the second it launched, or you would have it now. Why didn't you snap it up? Because you weren't that excited about it until you could not get it and it was gone forever, or so you thought, and now it's back and you're thinking, finally I can get my hands on that palette. But the only reason it seems so exciting is because you thought you couldn't get it and it was gone forever. But it's still the same palette that you didn't initially run out and grab the second it launched. It's still the same palette that is very mixed as far as the reviews. It's still the same palette that looks very similar and gets a very similar look to all of the ones that you already own. So don't fall for the FOMO. Don't fall for the fact that you thought it was gone and now it's back, so you must have it, okay? It's trickery. All right, it's the only reason you still want it. You didn't want it the first time, you don't need it the second time. Let it go. Next up, let's talk about this Natasha Denona Mini Triochrome palette. This is an easy one for me to skip. I didn't pick this up. I have no plans of picking it up. I'm not being funny. This is what I wear for eyeshadow. That is terrifying. It's alarming me. And all I can see when I look at it is my PE teacher from secondary school. That's all I see. It's PE lessons in the 90s, ruled over by the lady with the bright blue eyeshadow every single day of her life. And let me tell you, she was rocking the blue eyeshadow. Nothing wrong with it. But that's all I can see. That's the memory it's giving me. Orienteering, cross country in the freezing cold rain all winter. Why did we do cross country in the winter? What were we doing that for? Why would we not do it in the summer? Why would we do it at all? Okay, it was a misery. It was hell. And that's all I'm seeing when I look at this palette. I'm seeing PE lessons in the mud and the rain, orienteering, where I used to stand in the middle of school, and my best friend, who actually enjoyed running and orienteering, would run off and get all of the numbers and I'd just write them down. And that was my role in the activity. So that's what I see when I look at this, and it's giving me slight anxiety, if I'm being honest. I feel like someone's going to make me run a mile in the mud and the rain. But if you are not haunted by blue eyeshadow wearing PE teachers from the 90s, then your reason for not buying this is, honestly, are you honestly going to wear this a lot? I know people say and talk themselves into buying these £5 because they're only like 20 odd pounds. So it's not like a mothership. I'm not spending £120 on an eyeshadow palette. But here's the thing, if you skipped 2 of these mini 20 odd pound, 20 odd dollar palettes, you've got a midi. You know, skip like 4 of them and you've got a Pat McGrath mothership. And which would you use more and which would you rather have if you're going to save up and treat yourself to something? I mean, maybe you'll wear this twice and then you'll go back to your more comfortable zone of makeup like I will. Or these are your colours and you're super in love with them and you've probably already bought the larger Triochrome palette, in which case you don't need it either. So ultimately the conclusion is nobody needs it. Either these are your colours and you already have them, or they're not your colours and you won't wear them. So that's everybody covered, including me because of my PE teacher. She's haunting me. Next up, we're going to talk about this Patrick Tar Holiday palette. Oh, now I liked the idea of this. I will say that. I like people doing eyeshadow and blush and highlight all in one. It makes for a very pretty object to look at, doesn't it? Especially with all of the pink and everything shimmer. That is so pink. It's so much pink in one location, and there are only shimmers in that palette, and I don't know how you're going to get a look out of this. Even if you want to do like a one and done shadow look, typically we want something in the crease, we want some kind of light and shade. It's just so pink is what I'm saying, okay? Unless you're literally Barbie herself, I think this is too much pink for anybody. There are four pink blushes in there. How many pink blushes can one person possibly put on their face? Surely even if you really, really love pink, you only need one, don't you? How are you going to get all 4? You've only got 2 cheeks. You don't need all of these. It's very expensive, and yes, it's shiny and it's pink and it's pretty, and if you are a Barbie girl, maybe this is screaming your name, but you could just literally buy one single blush for like half the amount. You don't need the eyeshadows because there's nothing special going on in there. And maybe you already have the Patrick Tar eyeshadow palettes, in which case this is nothing that you don't already have. It's definitely nothing that we don't already have in every single eyeshadow palette that we already own. And nobody needs 4 bright pink Barbie blushes, okay? Even if that's your colour and your jam, in which case you look phenomenal and I'm loving it for you, but you don't need 4 of them. Not even you. Yes. Barbie, I'm talking to you. You only need 1. You only can put 1 blush on a day, okay? You don't need 4. $65 of pink. That's too much pink for anybody. Next up, let's talk about Nars's cheek palette for holiday. These come out every single year. If you've ever bought one before in your life, you don't need another one, okay? For a start, there are 6 cheek products in there. Typically there's 1 or 2 highlighters and mostly blush. That's a lot of blush to be getting along with for a very, very long time, isn't it? A lot of cheek products, again, we've only got 2, and typically we wear the same products at the same time, so really you only need 1 cheek product per day. There's 6 in here. If you've bought 1 or 2, or heaven help you, even 3 of these in previous years, what's happening? Why would you possibly need another one of these? You've got so many. And also, I guarantee if you're anything like me and you just love and live for a cheek palette, you've probably got several of the Hourglass ones as well. Have you hit pan on any of those? Have you ever come close to even making a dent in any of these Nars blush palettes? Because they typically are either that really sort of gelée hybrid formula, or they are that very, very thin formula from a couple of years ago, and you can't use those up. They're too thin. You use such a small amount that even if you're using that like every day for 10 years, I don't think you'd hit pan because you use such a small amount. They last forever. So actually, if you have one, it's probably a really great investment. When you start to buy 3, 4 of them, it becomes crazy talk. Okay, it's madness. You've already got all of these blush colours. None of them are like revolutionary blushes you don't already own. And I think some of the promo pictures of this palette kind of misled us a little to think that it was a little more exciting and different to how it really is. The first picture I saw of this palette, it looked like the bottom left shade was a really beautiful sort of tan golden blush, but it's actually just a highlighter. And then the top left shade, which again, it looks quite an interesting pink, is actually quite sheer and light and just not, again, as interesting as it looked in the pan. The other 4 shades are the exact same 4 shades that have been in every single Nars blush palette for the last 5 years. So if you picked up any of those, you already have what's in here. So easy pass. Next up, let's talk about these Tom Ford Soleil Neige highlighters that are everywhere. Everybody is losing their marbles over them because they're so beautiful, and the early swatches that we've seen look super duper pretty. And the word on the street is that they are that luminous, smooth type of highlighter, not the super metallic over the top type of highlighter. So if, like myself, you're a more subdued, luminous, glowy girl than you are a metallic seen from space type of person, then these are like tickling our pickles, aren't they? They're screaming our name. But these are so expensive. They're £70. And I know that it looks pretty and you're thinking, oh wow, this is just what I like in a highlighter. But because of that, it means that you already have lots of luminous glowy highlighters. You've probably got the Galon ones that I really love, really subtle. Maybe you've got the Pat McGrath Divine Rose, really subtle, beautiful luminosity. Maybe you've got some Hourglass palettes that have really beautiful, subtle, luminous highlighters in. You've probably actually, if you really think about it, got lots of these beautiful, glowy highlighters. This one's just the newest one in the bowl. So we're all getting really carried away and our minds are saying, oh, but I was going to get the Chanel Symbols one and they aren't coming. So I'll get this one instead, but they are coming. I've told you this before. I've told you it's a trick. It's a trap. We're not going to fall into it. They wanted us to buy the holiday collection. And so they're going to release these after that so that we buy both. It's another one of these little tricks. I've already seen people finding the Chanel Symbols highlighters, which we were told weren't coming to the US or the UK. They've been finding them in the US boutiques and they're popping up and soon they'll be online. So don't fall for it. Don't think I'm going to buy this instead because I was going to buy the Chanel one, but now they're not here, because you'll end up buying both. Okay, don't fall into that trap. You'll end up buying both. And you might have also bought the Chanel Holiday highlight using that same thought process that, oh, you know, it's basically free because I was going to get the Symbols one and I didn't. So this one's free because I saved money on that one. No, you're buying all of them and you don't even realize it's happening. And how different are any of these actually looking once you've applied them on the skin? Anyone but you can't notice any difference whatsoever between them. You just know which one you used that day. Do you think there's a single person that sees you throughout the day and thinks, that girl has a new highlighter on and it's definitely smoother than the one she wore yesterday? Do you think anyone can notice the difference? I don't think so. It's a highlighter. Okay, I think we'll all be fine without it and happier with the £70 we've still got in our pocket. And we can feel super smug that we didn't fall for it. Okay, just remember, there's always something even more exciting just around the corner. Don't get fooled because this is a limited edition and you're getting lured into thinking, oh, it's selling out, so I must run out and buy it, even though I was on the fence. Because it's selling out, I must buy it now. Because I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't get restocked, because that's just a classic little trick there, isn't it? Oh, it's sold out. It was so in demand. Oh, it's back again. Unbelievable. Don't fall for it. Next, let's talk about the Dior Holiday collection. A lot of very pretty products here. They're coming out of our ears. I think Dior released about 400 different options for holiday. Dior have really come for our entire bank balance this holiday. They have released so many different products, nail varnishes, eyeshadows, blushes, about 10 different eyeshadow palettes. We've got lots of little different kits. They just want our entire salary and bank balance to go straight transfer into theirs, and we're not doing that. Now, I reviewed this collection. The 2 eyeshadow palettes are nice. That's about as exciting as it gets. There's a cool toned one and a warm toned one. The warm toned one is very muted, very understated, very same, very done before, very we have 400 of them already. Tick, 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 don't need it. The cool toned one, we start to think, we don't have as many of those. People don't do as many cool toned ones, but don't they? Or do we still just believe that because it used to be true? Because now we have actually quite a few cool toned options, don't we? There's starting to be a lot more of them. Maybe you got the 5 pan from McGrath Holiday last year. Dior actually pretty good at doing cooler or neutral eyeshadow palettes, so you've probably got a couple from them already. You know, you have a couple of Natasha Denona cooler toned palettes that have come out in recent years. We definitely have more cooler toned eyeshadow than we used to, and this is no more exciting than any of the others. It's a like 5 pan eyeshadow palette for nearly £60. It's very expensive. It's not super wow factor. It's just a nice cool toned, pretty standard eyeshadow palette, of which you probably already have a couple, or of which you could get a much bigger, maybe even more exciting one for around the same price point, just because it doesn't have Dior written on the back. And when it comes to the blushes, they have that beautiful embossing and it makes it seem much more exciting, but it's a very, very light, subtle peach blush. And then this blush that I have on today is the other one, which again, it's a nice blush. I'm enjoying it. It looks fine. Do I have like 15 others that are kind of similar in my whole collection? Sure, when it goes on the cheeks, would you know that this was the Dior one and it's different from, you know, Pat McGrath's Des Orchid or Nars's Madly or like 3 different Laura Mercier ones? Or is it just, it's a neutral, soft, pretty blush like many, many, many that you already have in your drawer? And this one just has like a bit of a pretty pattern on the front and it says Dior. All of this we already have in abundance. We don't need any more. If you really, really love these, ask for it for Christmas. That's what it's there for. You know, holiday collections are for other people to buy us as gifts, not for us to go broke over. This is all totally skippable. Next up, let's talk about these Hermes mascaras. There's a few things here that really, really gripping me and grabbing me towards these mascaras, and I'm sure you're the same. One, the component is the most beautiful, luxurious mascara component I've ever seen in my life. And believe me, I've seen a lot of them because I just can't get enough of mascara. So that's number one. That looks, oh, it looks very, very sexy for a mascara, doesn't it? Very, very alluring. The second thing is they've gone and done a brown one. There are 6 colours of this. Most of these colours we're not interested in. I don't need a blue or a green mascara. Typically throughout my day, very rare occasion that I feel like I want green eyelashes, but you know, Halloween is coming, so possibly that will be the one time. If I decide to go on the school run as Elphaba, maybe I'll come to regret this, but I'm pretty sure there'll be a cheaper green mascara out there if I do feel the need for that. But brown mascara, very rare, very tricky to get your hands on, as we discovered when I was trying to find one that I wanted to use and that I like. Because we are starved of brown mascaras and brands who've realised that we want brown mascaras, and lots of us prefer it, and lots of us really crying out for really decent brown mascaras, they've whacked a brown colour in there and we've all gone, oh my God. I have to have it because it's brown and it's in a sexy component. But this is, I promise you, this is going to be like £40. I just know it. The price hasn't been confirmed yet, but I know it's going to be very expensive. And the thing about mascaras, even with the sexy packaging, they only really last a couple of months at best, and then you've got to throw it away. It's not like a foundation bottle that is going to sit on your vanity for maybe a year looking beautiful and glorious and very, very nice and pretty in its glass bottle packaging. This is going in the bin in like 2 months' time tops. Don't tell me you're going to keep it as an ornament. You won't, okay? It's going in the bin in 2 months, along with your £40. And we don't know if this is good yet. It might be rubbish, okay? Use me. I will buy this. I will buy the Hermes mascara. This is the deal I'm going to make you. I'll buy this. Let me waste my money. That's why I'm here. That's what I'm here for. Let me waste my money. You save yours. I'll try it out. So at the very least, we actually know for a fact if it's good or not. And I can tell you how long it stayed good for. You should be using creators like me to save you money. Now, I see it all the time. Oh, creators, like they make me spend all my money. It's because of you that I buy all this makeup. Let me spend my money so you can save yours, because I don't think this is going to be like especially wow factor other than the packaging and the price. So that's the deal we're making. At least wait until I tell you if what's inside is as sexy as what's on the outside, because we don't buy makeup for the packaging, okay? And we don't buy very expensive mascaras just because they come in brown. All right, that's a new one that we're adding. Who's keeping a list? Who's keeping track of the mantras. That's a new one. We don't buy mascara because it's brown. It might be awful on brown, okay? At least check first. Next up, let's talk about Charlotte Tilbury Holiday, okay? We've got the Beautyverse eyeshadow palette, and then we've got the cheek duos, the blush and highlighters. Let's start with those because those are an easy pass. If you've ever bought a Charlotte Tilbury cheek palette before, which again, I'm such a sucker for them. I own all of them. I love them. They're so pretty. They always lure me in with the gorgeous, glorious packaging. They always released around holiday time when I'm feeling in the mood for gifting and treating myself. So if like me you have the Lovegasm, the Lightgasm, the Nudegasm, etc., you definitely already have these shades, okay? The deeper palettes from Charlotte Tilbury are always sort of peachy orangey tones, and the lighter palettes are always pinky, pillow talky tones. So we already have these shades times 48 from Charlotte Tilbury. You don't need those. You already have them. That one, job done. The Beautyverse eyeshadow palette, it's again a very pretty, beautiful, lovely holiday packaging palette. I won't lie to you and tell you that it's rubbish. I don't think that's helpful to lie to you. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's super pretty and beautiful, but it's still just an eyeshadow palette. It's very expensive. It's not going to take me for dinner. It's not going to take 10 years off my age. You know, there are no real shades in there that are wildly unique or different to lots of the other eyeshadows that we already own. We already own lots of Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadows. Her single hypnotizing pop shots, if you pick those up, are going to give you a super pretty, beautiful look on the eye already. So you don't really need a whole eyeshadow palette full of them, okay? This is definitely one, again, would make a great gift for somebody else to treat you with. Again, Sephora sales coming up. At least wait for that and get 20% off so you can feel super smug over the rest of us who had to pay full price. Okay? Well, actually, I didn't because I get a creator discount, but I would have had to if not for that, okay? Be smug anyway, it's fun. The other thing to remember is this is limited edition, but this is Charlotte Tilbury limited edition. So typically what that means is that yes, it is in fact limited edition. It's not Natasha Denona limited edition where, you know, like the Metropolis palette was limited edition, but it was here for like 3 years. Typically, Charlotte Tilbury limited edition will stay in stock for a good couple of months, 2 or 3 months, I would say at least until the end of the year. So if you want to ask for it for Christmas, if you want to wait for a sale, if you want to wait until you get a bonus or until someone gives you a gift card, I think you can do it. I don't think it's going to go out of stock before the end of the year. I'd be surprised. And if it does, let it go. Consider it fate that you were supposed to keep that money in your pocket and not give it to Charlotte Tilbury, who already has a lot of money, I promise you. And speaking of someone who has a lot of money and doesn't need any of ours, it's Victoria Beckham. Victoria Beckham Beauty have released 3 fragrances, and oh, that packaging is really sucking us right into it, isn't it? It's got extremely sexy packaging, okay? It's very hard to resist because it's the packaging, it's doing it for me. It looks like a little hip flask in some ways, and it's quite different to any other fragrance packaging that I own, and I have a lot of fragrances, so I see what they're doing. I see what they... Packaging, it tempts us. It's there to tempt us. Initially, they slightly misled us with the availability of these. It seemed that they were like going to only release 30 bottles, but now how I interpreted this is that they are releasing 30 signed bottles, and there's actually way more of them. So they kind of painted this like this really unattainable perfume that if you don't buy it the second they release, you're going to miss out and they'll be gone forever and it's super duper exclusive. That doesn't seem to be the reality because they've been out for like a week or 2 now and they're still just sitting there. So that's number 1. I don't think we need to panic buy these. I think they'll hang around for a while. Number 2, don't go buying a fragrance you don't know if you like it and you don't know how it smells or anything about it from a brand new fragrance house, essentially. When the 100ml bottle is £245, even the 50ml is £170. That's a huge amount of money. Do you know how to cheat the system? If you're really super excited about these, get the Discovery set. It's £30 and you get all 3. Not the full-size bottles, obviously, but you get a little sample of all 3 for £30. So you can try them out, and if you really, really love it, again, you can ask for it for Christmas. You can save up until you have the money to spare and it's not going on your credit card. Just keep your money to yourself for a little while. If you want to treat yourself and try some fragrance, get the Discovery set, because you can then get the £30 off the full-size bottle. So it's not money wasted, but it's a lot less money to spend if you actually don't like the perfume when it comes, or it doesn't perform very well. The perfumer of these fragrances, shockingly I know, is not actually Victoria Beckham. She didn't actually come up with these perfumes. Can you believe it? The actual perfumer behind these is Jerome Epinette, and he is the nose behind lots of Byredo fragrances, commodity fragrances. So I'm not a huge Byredo fan, okay? I typically find the performance is just really weak on me, and that's why I don't really own any fragrances from the house. They just don't perform well enough for what I like. So my suspicion is that these are going to not be great performing fragrances. They're probably not going to have that great longevity, and they're probably not going to have a huge amount of projection or sillage either. I think they're probably going to smell lovely. I don't think Victoria Beckham would put 3 terrible rubbish fragrances out, especially if she's gone and used a really well-known and respected perfumer. I think they're going to smell nice. Whether or not you'll be able to smell them a couple of hours later, whether or not anyone else will be able to smell them a couple of hours later, remains to be seen. Very mixed reviews. I would proceed with caution. I would certainly not blind buy these without smelling them first. If you are so super interested in these, then please, I beg you, buy the Discovery set for £30 and save yourself £140 on a fragrance that you might not like. Because at the end of the day, if you do love it, think of it as a down payment. A lot less money to waste if the fragrances are just not that great after all. And again, Discovery fragrance sets make a perfect little gift from somebody else with their money and not ours. So, you know, drop some hints. Christmas is coming. So there you have it. Those are all of the most tempting, alluring, FOMO-inducing new beauty releases. Let's end by reciting our mantras. We do not pay full price for permanent products. We don't go broke for makeup. We allow a cooling off period. And finally, we never buy makeup for the packaging. And you thought I wasn't going to remember them. I've written them down, okay? That's how I did it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.